Good morning and welcome to the Sports Carnival, broadcasting live from the Trauma Center studios. Now for the guy with the same amount of professional football championship rings as Aaron Rodgers. That's right. Here's your host, Dave Carney. That's actually a true statement.
My motherfucking man. Yes, that's a true statement. Absolutely. As a matter of fact, the team that I worked for went to more championship games than Aaron Rodgers will ever consider.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, they went to three UFL championship games, came home with two of them. I was a member of one. Welcome to the Sports Carnival, broadcasting live from the brand new Trauma Center studios here in the heart of downtown La Crosse, Wisconsin, Chad. The recovery room who powers the Trauma Center studio, gearing up for a really big weekend. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday at the recovery room, Chad, are just what you would think that they would be in a town in which drinking is the favorite pastime. It's going to be busy. It's going to be raucous. We're right down the street from the campus of Viterbo University, which means we're going to have a whole bunch of kids. And then, of course, the people that like to come in and drink with the kids here with us this weekend. Breakfast 8 to noon, both Saturday and Sunday. Get on down here, corner of 7th and Mississippi. Have a little bit of fun with us at the recovery room. And who knows, Joey, when you turn 21, you too may become a regular at the recovery room. As a matter of fact, Joey's been pining wistfully to hang out with us after hours because, bar time comes and we got to kick the kids out. But once he turns 21, Joey, we'll be seeing you plant your katukas right there at the recovery room bar. It's going to be fun.
I like where his head's at. He's already thinking prop bets. That's great.
Yeah, this is fantastic because guess what I have?
I agree, actually. Kelsey, I agree. Hurts, yeah, I could see that as well. Those are both good picks. If you were going to go, who's going to score first?
Yeah,
I could see either one of those. Of course, I could also say maybe Christian McCaffrey if you're going to go 49ers.
If you're looking at Christian McCaffrey right now, plus 475, Chad, at betus.com to score the first touchdown of the game. Deebo Samuel, plus 900. We look at Philadelphia.
Oh, yeah.
You've got first up A.J. Brown, is plus 700 to score the first touchdown there. This is going to be good. I'll look at Travis Kelce's as well. I've got everything in front of me with the the NFC Championship game. I'll trickle over to the AFC Championship game too, but I like this. I like it.
Rob Dog, yes, we all have the same amount of championship rings. Good point. Good point.
Job, buddy. Hey, speaking of Rob Dog's Chicago Bears, Chad, I know that the Chicago Bears 84-85 defense was stellar, right? The 85 Super Bowl championship team. Yeah. But the 84 team was also really good too. So they had 2 seasons with Buddy Ryan as their defensive coordinator and, of course, Mike Ditka as their head coach that were just phenomenal. I mean, some of the best defenses of all times. Would it surprise you to know that the Philadelphia Eagles are sacking quarterbacks on third down the same rate this season as only the 84-85 Bears have done?
Wow.
They sack a quarterback on average 1 every 5 times on third down. That is absolute dominance because think about how many third downs you get in a football game.
Yeah.
In a general football game, you're probably looking at least, we'll say 15 to 20 series in a game. That could indicate at least a dozen third downs, maybe less, depending on how well your offense is running. But think about that. A sack on 1 out of every 5 third downs on average, which is the highest rate of sacks since the 84-85 Bears. And we say the 83-84 or 84-85 and the 85-86 Bears. Those 2 years combined were 2 of the most dominant defensive performances we have ever seen. And that's what this Philadelphia team is doing. And Chad, I was on last night with ESPN's 105.5 Sports Lead and host John Papadopoulos, gave my play of the week, which is Cincinnati now as a pick'em against the Kansas City Chiefs. And we'll talk more about why that is. But we also got into the discussion about Philadelphia versus San Francisco. And I want to spend some time on that this morning. As a matter of fact, the subject of our poll question, which is up on our Twitter feed at the Sports Carney, our Facebook group page, is simply who wins the NFC Championship game. Philly is a 2.5-point favorite right now. San Francisco, of course, has not lost, I want to say, in 10 games. They are on a 10-game winning streak. This is a clash of the Titans. This is one of those games, Chad, that if you're a fan of slobber-knocking old-school football, you're going to have a really good time. And it's the early game on Sunday, which means you won't even be too drunk to enjoy the full game. It's going to be wonderful. I'm so excited about Championship Sunday. I really am.
I am too. I'm a little nervous about that game, to be honest with you, being a 49er fan. Yeah, the way the Eagles played last week, man, they dominated. And, with Hurts being full strength, he's tough to contain. And 49ers have a great defense, but this isn't going to be an easy task. And then, as you mentioned, the Eagles have a great defense and can get to the quarterback. So will we finally see Brock Purdy get, ruffled a little bit? We really haven't seen that. He's kept his cool. He stays in the pocket. He makes those great passes. He seems to have that confidence of a 10-year veteran. Will he be able to hold up with the Eagles' onslaught? I guess that remains to be seen. I'm hopeful. Thus far, he's been amazing. But we always have to keep the back of our head that he is a rookie, and it's not very often the rookie is able to do what he is doing. In fact, this is unprecedented. If he actually wins and goes to the Super Bowl, it'll be the first from my understanding. I just read an article about it. They did a whole list of different rookies that had great years and made it to the championship game. And if he does it, it'll be absolutely remarkable. And again, even if he doesn't, it's been a great story. But long story short, I'm not all that confident about Sunday.
Well, I'll break this down a bit more for you from a betting perspective. Again, Philly -2.5, and we'll look at some of the indicators. This is a great story for both Brock Purdy and for Jalen Hurts. As a matter of fact, these two quarterbacks aged 47 years and 208 days combined.
Isn't that amazing?
47 years old combined in 208 days represent the youngest.
Younger than me.
Yes. And damn near younger than Tom Brady. I mean, just like a little bit younger than Tom Brady, right? Like Tom Brady's 46. This represents the youngest quarterback matchup ever in the history of a championship game. And as you've mentioned, if Brock Purdy is in fact able to get San Francisco to the Super Bowl, he will become the first rookie in the history of the league to start a Super Bowl, which in and of itself is really impressive. Saying what's up this morning to some of our good friends that are just starting to check in here. I see Morning Wood popping up. We've got Mike Byers checking in from Winona, Wisconsin. I think that's Bleedos. I don't know how to pronounce this. I'd have
Blodos.
Yeah. I wanted to say Eric Bledsoe's Bakery in Winona, but thank you to Matty Ice. Matty Ice must have hooked up Mike with some sort of gift certificate or told him about the kinds of fare. Is this Matty Ice and Mike Byers? Tell me if this is the place that serves like a world famous donut. I don't eat donuts, Chad, but these guys were asking me once if I would eat this donut.
Yeah.
I kindly declined because I just don't do that. But apparently there is some sort of confection or treat that is out of this world up there at this bakery in Winona. So thanks for checking in from Minnesota. Appreciate you. Again, I said Morning Wood popping up. And we'll try to take as many of your comments as we can possibly get to here this morning. Craig Cole, Onalaska Hilltopper head coach, is going to be joining the Sports Carnival in our Sports Carney carousel at 8:30 this morning. Craig and I were just kind of talking the other night and hedging around a whole bunch of different subjects, NBA basketball, college basketball, high school basketball, when we were in attendance at UWL versus Whitewater. Craig's Onalaska Hilltoppers, of course, one of the premier teams here in the Cooley region, and a team that has seen a number of players go to not only the pros, but big-time Division I colleges. So we'll talk to Craig about this year's roster, see where that team is at a couple of weeks from now. There is that big rivalry matchup between Central and Onalaska. This time it'll be at the campus of the Onalaska Hilltoppers. If you want to join the program, as mentioned, hit us up on Facebook, on YouTube, on Twitch. We'd love to hear from you. Stay tuned. We'll come back broadcasting live from the Trauma Center studios powered by the Recovery Room. What can I say? The Recovery Room on 7th and Mississippi Street is not only my favorite bar in all of downtown La Crosse, Wisconsin, it's my favorite restaurant in all of downtown La Crosse, Wisconsin. Breakfast served 8 to noon, Saturday and Sundays, daily specials, incredible cocktails, and the best damn wait staff in the entire city. My buddy Matt knows how to treat you right, and that's why when you go to the Recovery Room on 7th and Mississippi, you're always going to have a great time and a great meal with a great cocktail. So if you haven't been in a while, or perhaps you're just regular and you want to stop in again, make it a thing. I'm there every single week. How about you?
Coming to Fox this fall, it's the Bench Brothers.
Talking about that street clothes in Westbrook.
They're getting down on the bench. The Bench Brothers, brought to you by Big Dick's Hoagie Heaven. Remember, ladies, the first 6 inches is free. And by Don Francisco's. At Don Francisco's, if you're up all night, so are we.
Street clothes in Westbrook.
They're getting down on the bench.
Broadcasting live from the Trauma Center studios, this is the Sports Carnival, pork chop free since 2017. Now here's your host, Dave Carney.
Oh, man. That was something that me and Craig were talking about at the UW game the other day because he had the sightline of big old pork chop as well. And one thing that I know a lot of you have really missed was conversations with pork chop. So when pork chop would attempt to text the program chat, and again, we have basically a lot of ampersands and asterisks being used as letters. I would put on a very official English-sounding voice, and we would have conversations with pork chop. And what better way to read somebody's nonsensical text message than in an official, English voice? Because we speak American here. We don't speak English. We should all know that. But if you can give it a real English voice, it just makes it sound so much stupider.
I thought it'd be more like, Dave, I just want
That's
talk about. That would be more of the pork chop voice. I don't know the guy, but I've seen a picture. And
you've nailed that one. You have inhibited his entire persona just right now. I listen. The guy is just a walking mess. It's a disaster on 2 feet, which I'm not even sure how he remains bipedal, to be fair. I thought at some point he would just collapse into like one of those little dollies, the hand carts that you just kind of roll around and maybe have a couple of stumps that you can slide around on and maybe walking sticks during the snow season. By the way,
Eddie Murphy in Trading Places at the very beginning. Did you see? Yes,
exactly. Yeah. Except for without any of the forethought to make that a hustle. Right? Like that's just a mode of transportation. By the way, one of the best movies, I don't care what era it is, because it was shot in incredible, I think 32 millimeter film. One of the best movies of the last 45 or 50 years, Trading Places, from a comedy standpoint. I mean, it's not going to win an Oscar for its major dramatic roles, but it is really a great movie. And that movie actually asks so many interesting questions. If you're younger and you've never seen Trading Places with Dan Aykroyd and Eddie Murphy, watch it. You are going to be enthralled. It's hilarious. And Jeff Zelke, thank you. It's Blados.
Yeah.
Listen, and Mike's trying to come back with Blados rhymes with play. No, spell it out. Give me a phonetic like Jeff Zelke did. Don't get cute. Blados. That was fantastic.
Maple bacon long john, whatever that is.
That's the donut that they wanted me to try. So it's got everything Wisconsinites and Minnesotans love. High amounts of salted meats along with incredible amounts of sugar and cream. That way we get all of these things knocked out in one sitting.
That sounds like a gay Canadian porn. Maple bacon long john.
Yes. SCTV actually did a skit on that back in 1987. Yeah. I remember that well. All right. If you're just joining the program here, welcome aboard wherever it is that you may be and however it is that you're consuming us. One of our 2 Facebook streams on LinkedIn, on YouTube, on Twitch, on Twitter, or if you happen to catch us afterwards on any of the podcast platforms that carry the Sports Carnival, which is every single major podcast platform. We appreciate you being part of the program here. Kyle Cable, One Trust Real Estate, is the official real estate agent of the show. Sold my house in Stoddard in 2 days, and boy, it's taken me 2 months to move out of this thing, but 2 days he sold it, in 2 months I'll be gone. Of course, we've got our friends over at Preferred Insurance, Brian and Tony, your official insurance provider, Sean O'Neill from the O'Neill Law Firm, and Joe Sampson from Helping Hands Landscaping, all making this thing roll. Again, if you want to join the program, we'd love to hear from you. Craig Cole, Onalaska Hilltoppers coach, is going to jump aboard at 8:30 this morning. Chad, we've got a poll question on our Twitter feed. It's our Facebook group page poll question as well. Who wins the NFC Championship game? We stepped away from this because you mentioned that you're nervous. You're a 49ers fan, and I want to talk about this game for a bit. Then we'll talk more about that Bengals and that Chiefs game, which I made my play of the week on ESPN 105.5 last night with John Papadopoulos. The Eagles are 2.5-point favorites. We can basically throw out a lot of what we know about the Eagles and the 49ers this season because, to be fair, neither of these two teams has really faced a team like the other. The 49ers I think, have faced tougher competition this season overall with the teams that they have played, in particular Dallas last week. That Dallas defense was really good. And when you talked about Brock Purdy not really being shaken, last week against Dallas was the first time, Chad, that I'd seen Brock Purdy be off schedule because Dallas did get at him a bit, right? And Brock Purdy did on occasion get off schedule. That's where you see the genius of the coaching of Kyle Shanahan, because as long as Brock Purdy does what is designed and schemed for him in that offense, he's fine. As a matter of fact, Jimmy Garoppolo was fine. Trey Lance would have been fine, I'm sure, too. The offense for the 49ers is so well constructed, so well thought out, and so well planned that you can work with a 7th-round quarterback, a 2nd-round quarterback, or the 3rd overall pick. It all makes sense. But once you get Brock Purdy off schedule, then you start to see a little bit of the reasons why he was possibly the last player picked in the NFL draft. Now, to that end, going over this Philadelphia defense, Chad, I'm with you in your nervous take on how the 49ers might perform, because Philadelphia, if their defense plays like it shows that it can, they could wreck that San Francisco offensive line. And as good as your defense is, as good as the scheming of Kyle Shanahan is, if you're a 49er fan, the offensive line looks to me to be one of the weaker spots on that particular team. That's where I'm really curious to see and concerned, if I'm a 49ers fan, how they're going to hold up, and therefore how Brock Purdy is going to hold up. Christian McCaffrey did not practice yesterday, but did say there is zero chance that he will not play in the coming championship game. You know, if you were to pick one particular thing on offense that you think you would need to see in order for San Francisco to best the Philadelphia defense, what would that be?
Well, go back to Morning Woods right here. I think he's accurate in this part of his text here. Eagles offense is too much. San Francisco isn't a team that's built to come from behind. And I agree. So that means that they need to get out ahead, and they need to be able to control the offensive duration on the field, right? They need time of possession. So that means they're going to have to run the football. I'm looking for Christian McCaffrey specifically to have a huge game. If he doesn't have a big game, I think that the 49ers may be in trouble. Obviously, the way that they scheme, the way that they basically lay their offense out and confuse the defense, and then the fact that they have so many different weapons is an advantage. But I still think that they're going to have to run the football, because I agree with Morning Wood, especially with the rookie quarterback. Brock Purdy isn't really going to be set up to be able to come back from 2 or 3 touchdowns. That's not going to happen. So if the Eagles get out quick, like they did last week, where they score 14 points in 3 minutes or whatever it was, the 49ers are in trouble. Then the other side of it is, I think that it's going to be extremely helpful. This goes without saying, and it seems blatantly obvious, but if the 49ers defense are able to get some turnovers and possibly score, that definitely gives them a huge advantage, which is definitely possible, because that's the one thing that we talk a lot about. Obviously, Brock Purdy, we talk about that great offense and all the weapons, but man, I'll tell you what, 49ers defense is pretty solid.
Yeah, the 49ers defense is, for Philadelphia, going to represent the toughest matchup they have faced this year. The Philadelphia Eagles have not played the who's who of the NFL. As a matter of fact, I'm going to go ahead and look right now. I want to get myself refamiliarized with all of their different opponents. 14-3 on the season is fantastic. They've played the Lions, the Vikings, the Commanders, the Jaguars, the Cardinals, the Cowboys, the Steelers, the Texans, the Commanders, the Colts, the Packers, the Titans, the Giants, the Bears, the Cowboys, the Saints, and the Giants again. The only team on this list that you could really look at and say, man, their defense improved, that was the Lions. That was the first game of the season. They won that game 38-35. The Dallas game, okay, 26-17. I believe Dak Prescott was injured in that game, and that's why the Dallas Cowboys ended up losing that. The Cowboys beat the Eagles 40-34. That was without Jalen Hurts and with Gardner Minshew. The Eagles again fell to the Saints 20-10, winning against the Giants before beating them in the postseason. The Eagles, my point being, they have not faced a defense anywhere comparable to what it is that San Francisco is going to throw out. And really, if we took more time, I mean, Washington, Jacksonville, nice story. The Cardinals, an atrocious team. Pittsburgh had barely started to figure things out when they played them back in week 8, 35-13 the score. There just weren't a lot of good opponents on the schedule for Philly. Not their fault. You play who you play. And they played in the NFC East, where you actually got 3 playoff teams out of the NFC East. So it's not that their division was garbage, but they have not been tested, not in any meaningful way. The defense of San Francisco, I think, is one of those factors that if they are able to break through the offensive line of Philadelphia, which is a tough task because that is a great, not good, but a great offensive line, then Jalen Hurts is going to have problems. Listen, Jalen Hurts is great when he's able to work off schedule, able to get outside the pocket. If you force him to stand back there and just make reads and throws, while San Francisco is then able to guard all of your players, because remember, that's the thing that sets this off for Philly. Jalen Hurts goes, that's an 11th offensive player. That's hard to deal with. But if he's in the pocket and the 49ers, let's say they can even make containment with 4 guys, that's going to be hard for Philadelphia. It really will. As skilled as they are, as many weapons as they have, it's going to be hard. They're going to have to, if that does happen, they're going to have to work out in real time how to adjust. Do they go more to the ground game with Miles Sanders? What's going to be next for them if, in fact, Jalen Hurts doesn't get the ability to be Jalen Hurts? Because, again, those 2 games that I've mentioned against Dallas and New Orleans, were both losses. And Gardner Minshew is not an incapable quarterback. He's actually won some games as a starter. Doesn't look terrible when I see him on the field, but that's how dependent Philadelphia's offense is on Jalen Hurts.
Well, he's the X factor, and that's part of the reason why he's one of the finalists for not only Offensive Player of the Year, but MVP. And at one time before he got injured, I thought he was the MVP. I still think it's going to go to Patrick Mahomes, but I think it's a tight race. And then you got Bosa on the other side that's up for Defensive Player of the Year, and rightfully so, and I think he'll win it. I mean, this is really the ideal. If you're the NFL, not that it's scripted, if you're the NFL, this is the exact matchup you wanted for both AFC and NFC.
That's fair.
Think about. Can you think about better teams as far as from an? I mean, I know not as a fan. Obviously, people are going to say Green Bay. Obviously, I get that. But from strictly a fan of not just one specific team, but of football, could you think of better matchups? I really could. I can't.
No, and what you really get if you're the NFL is this as well. You get two major markets, Philadelphia and San Francisco. You get to bookend the country with those, okay? Then you get the heartland of the country with Cincinnati and Kansas City. You get a couple of players in Patrick Mahomes and Joe Burrow that have been looked at as the two surefire next best quarterbacks in a generation, which they are proving to be so. And then you've got the two quarterbacks, one picked in the second, one picked in the 7th round. They come out of nowhere and get to shock you, right? And no, Joey Miller, I didn't remember when Brock Purdy and Jalen Hurts played in 2019. I didn't, but that was, of course, when Jalen Hurts went to Oklahoma and they played in the Big 12. That's not the point here, but you get the storylines that you would want, right? You get big teams from big markets, plus the middle of the country, awesome quarterbacking in the AFC, unexpected quarterbacking in the NFC. And again, you look at Philadelphia and San Francisco. These teams have been knocking on the door of the Super Bowl the last couple of years. Philly wins it just a few years back against the Patriots, and the 49ers were just in a Super Bowl a couple of years ago, losing to Kansas City. You can't go wrong with this if you were scripting it, which, of course, they're not. They're not scripting it specifically, but if you were, this does line up pretty damn well. It really does.
Well, I'll go back to Morningwood real quick. Philly 31, Niners 10. God, I hope you're wrong, but I hate to say it. That looks... Oh, man, that could very well happen. I was so impressed last week with Philadelphia and how much of a different team that is when Jalen Hurts is completely healthy and playing well. I mean, they're almost like they kind of remind you a little bit of the Greatest Show on Turf to a degree, because they can score in a freaking hurry. And it's again, I agree with Morningwood that the 49ers are not a team that can come from behind. So, actually the coin toss in and of itself is going to be a factor here. If you get the ball first and you're able to score, if you're the 49ers, you're going to feel much better to stay ahead than to get behind. And again, getting Brock Purdy off schedule, being a rookie, all of those things, having the pressure from that front four from the Eagles on top of them. This is a tough task, but again, it's going to be exciting. I'm still pulling for the 49ers. In fact, I'm going to go on record and say that they are going to win.
Ooh.
But I won't put any money on it.
That's interesting that you've mentioned that, since you brought up the idea of putting money on something. BetUS.com, the official sports betting partner of the program, gives you 125% deposit match when you make your initial deposit. Chad, if you can, bring up the slide that we've got here for our viewers on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on YouTube, on Twitch, and on Twitter. If you're listening to us later on, we'll work you through this. It's my plays of the weekend. As much as I want to see San Francisco with Brock Purdy be able to pull off a victory in Philadelphia, as much as I want to see that, I just don't think they'll be able to do it. I think that Philadelphia and the Eagles defense, along with that offensive line, a healthier Jalen Hurts, he still says he's a little bit banged up. I think they're going to be too much for San Francisco. And Jalen Hurts, when healthy, is 20-3 against the spread. When healthy. Think about that. 20-3 against the spread.
Can I change my answer?
You can. If you haven't laid any money down yet, you can, because that might be
20-3 against the spread.
20-3 against the spread when healthy. I know the guy's a cover machine, and if you're looking at Philadelphia -2.5, what this says, if you're new to betting, and it's interesting because my girlfriend's mom, Sherry, thought I was a degenerate gambler, hopelessly lost, because I talk about it on the program. It's not true, Sherry. I promise you. I'm not a degenerate gambler. I'm just trying to make smart money using smart metrics. Looking at Philadelphia, the -2.5 says there is actually a consensus thought in some sharp markets that the San Francisco 49ers are a half a point better than Philadelphia, right? Like, that's what the power rankings are telling you, because a traditional line is what? -3 for a home team, correct?
Right. Yes.
So what we're seeing from this, you can extrapolate from this. There are many sharp bettors that say, based upon the metrics, that San Francisco is a half a point better on a neutral field than Philadelphia. This, of course, is not on a neutral field. This is why humans play the game and not robots. This is not Madden. So we have to incorporate all of that. But this is going to be a tough game. At that same time, I don't know about the score that Kyle Wood put up there, Morning Wood 31-10. I do think Philly wins, and I think they cover this 2.5 point spread. So I'm taking the Eagles minus the 2.5.
It's not only home field advantage, it's one of the most hostile places to play in the NFL. I mean,
only place with a jail.
They whip batteries at people, for Christ's sake, snowballs. I mean, they're out for blood. They're serious fans. And again, I don't think it's gonna bother a guy like Brock Purdy, but I think that if anything would, it would be that hostile environment. I don't think he's really seen that yet. Thus far, he's held up well. But when you're getting yelled at and batteries whipped at you and you got that front four coming after you, you're going to be like, yeah, you know what? Maybe it's time to go on vacation and we'll worry about it next season.
Well, it's the idea too, Chad, that, you're going to go to the Super Bowl if you win the game, right?
Yeah,
like you're sitting back there and telling yourself, if we win this game, we're going to the Super Bowl. I'll be the first rookie ever to go to a Super Bowl. Don't think that these guys are missing this, right? They can say all they want. I don't pay attention to the media. Everybody does now. It's on your phone. You can't avoid it. It's everywhere. It used to be, sure, guys would be able to get the papers hidden from them. Well, we're well past that day and age. You're definitely seeing and reading what it is people are saying about you. And I don't even know if it's Brock Purdy. You mentioned even Christian McCaffrey. Yeah. I think that is more important for San Francisco. If he is if he's not able to be that bell cow for San Francisco's offense to take the carries, and I think that I really do. I think that he needs about 20 design carries and then a whole bunch of movement in the passing game.
80 plus yards rushing, 40 plus yards receiving, 2 touchdowns is kind of what I'm looking for them to be able to win.
I would agree 100%. And there's an interesting prop, as a matter of fact, on Christian McCaffrey at BetUS right now, over under 95.5 total rushing yards. I would say I would go under 95.5. But if you can, again, give me 4 yards and a cloud of dust, I'm okay with that. If you give me 20 carries, 80 yards, and as you've mentioned, 40 yards in pass receptions, plus a couple of touchdowns, maybe one on the ground and one through the air, then Philadelphia's got themselves a problem. Then they've got a problem.
The other guy Philadelphia is going to have a problem with, which is anybody that plays the 49ers had a problem with, is Kittle. Kittle's obviously a huge part of that offense as well. And kind of the safety valve and the relief valve and the guy that every quarterback that plays behind that offensive line is looking for, but specifically Brock Purdy. And we've seen that in the last couple of games where he's been huge. And obviously he's got a great motor and he's got a great personality. He's one of those guys that lives in the moment, is not going to be overwhelmed, is going to keep guys loose. So he's a key to it as well. And of course, Deebo Samuel, another offensive weapon. That's the one thing about it. They've got great weapons. Can they utilize them? Can Brock Purdy stay on schedule? Can he keep his head in the game? And can he go through a game without getting sacked 10 times? You know what I mean? Those are going to be the keys, obviously, along with that, the rush game. And if you're able to run the ball, then that frees up Brock Purdy, that frees up, Kittle, that gives those guys the opportunity. But that's easier said than done.
Yeah, it's a lot easier said than done. And don't forget that Philadelphia Eagles have a pretty good tight end as well in Dallas. I mean, they've got a lot of good weapons on that team. Now, as far as the AFC Championship game is concerned, Cincinnati at Kansas City, this is a game I've been circling for the entire week because I just love where Cincinnati is at. While the spread is moved to a pick'em, Chad, so you're getting now even money odds basically for both of these teams. Let me check what the latest odds are because they've made the pick even. Actually, Kansas City at the pick'em is minus 120. You can get Cincinnati at a pick at even money. It means you bet $1, you win $1. I love Cincinnati minus a point. Now, I know that there's no spread in this, but let me throw out a couple of things real quick. In the last 16 games versus a team with a winning record, the Bengals are 13-2-1 against the spread. In their last 7 playoff games, the Bengals are 5-1-1 against the spread. Conversely, Kansas City in their last 34 games against an AFC opponent, Chad, wrap your mind around this. In the last 34 games for the Chiefs against an AFC opponent, they are just 9-24-1 against the spread.
Wow.
In their last 11 games overall for Kansas City, 2-8-1 against the spread. Now, I realize this is a pick'em. This is a game that is now moved to even.
Yeah.
But the indicators are telling me, especially in the head-to-head matchups in which Cincinnati has won all of the last 3, each of them by 3 points, but has won all of the last 3. The indicators are telling me that you can feel really confident about a Cincinnati Bengal bet this weekend. I realize Patrick Mahomes is great. I realize Andy Reid is fantastic and comes from the Mike Holmgren coaching tree. I get all that, guys. But Cincinnati, Joe Burrow, and the Bengals defense, the second half of games in the second half of this season, lights out. And wait until you see what they're going to have up their sleeves for Patrick Mahomes. The 10 design cornerback blitzes they threw on Josh Allen last week completely flummoxed the Buffalo Bills. Completely flummoxed them. We'll see if they're able to get that kind of pressure on Patrick Mahomes. I have a really strong feeling that they will. And again, I made this my play of the week on ESPN 105.5 last night with John Papadopoulos. And in the 6 weeks in which we've been on that program representing the Sports Carnival, 4-2 against the spread. So that means that we are really doing the right research and we are hitting this. I know that we're waiting for Coach Craig Cole, Onalaska Hilltopper head coach, to join us. He'll be with us when we come back here on the Sports Carnival. I can almost guarantee he's going to be joining us from the campus, the beautiful campus of Onalaska High School here in lovely Wisconsin. We are broadcasting live from the Trauma Center studios, powered by the Recovery Room. Stick around. We'll be back in just a few here on the Sports Carnival.
Preferred Insurance is the official auto, home, business, flood, and life insurance agency of the Sports Carnival, serving folks in La Crosse and surrounding areas with licenses in Wisconsin, Minnesota, and Iowa. As an independent insurance agency, Preferred Insurance is free to find the very best insurance for you, your family, or your business needs. Call my friends at Preferred Insurance today and set up a free consultation. Remember, working with an independent agency means Preferred Insurance works for you, with you, to find the best solutions at the best prices.
Coming to the Discovery Channel this fall, Living with a Confederate.
Hi, my name is Travis Tay. A lot of folks around here call me Tay-Tay. Yeah, I share a house with my second cousin. Name's Chandler. He's what some folks around here call eccentric.
Why, hello there. Allow me to introduce myself. I'm Chandler Worthington III, and I must admit, them Northerners, they get under my skin, make me hot under the collar, you know, with all that Northern aggression and everything. I always say, you boys just keep your Yankee Doodles out of my sweet potato pie. At least for now, anyway. That's my little joke. I mean, stars and bars may fill my heart, but hopefully, a chiseled chin and a barreled chest fills my loins.
See what I'm saying? I gotta deal with that 24/7.
I'm getting the vapors just thinking about them Northerners coming down here on their big old steeds.
Confederate.
Yeah.
Back to the Sports Carnival, broadcasting live from the Trauma Center studios. As Will Rogers once said, everything is funny as long as it's happening to somebody else. Now here's your host, Dave Carney.
Oh, good old Will Rogers. That's, by the way, if you're a boy and you want to order something that's like a kiddie cocktail at a bar. I don't know if they still do this. It's a Will Rogers. Shirley Temples.
Oh, it is.
Temples are for girls. Will Rogers are for boys. Will Rogers come with Coke. Shirley Temple with Sprite. Both of them have a maraschino cherry, so you can have fun and enjoy that. Not like I'm trying to promote, just not like I'm trying to promote too much bartending here. By the way, the Recovery Room, 7th in Mississippi, open this morning at 11 and tomorrow at 8 for breakfast. Just
hold on a second. In Wisconsin, isn't it sacrilegious to serve any drink without alcohol in it? So that you don't serve those at the Recovery Room. Either the Will Rogers or
the Will Rogers with whiskey, right? That's what you want. Whiskey, Will Rogers. So this is interesting because
Will Rogers
in Wisconsin, we have this law, okay? And I've just recently passed my bartender's license. We have this law that says if you're with your parent, okay, you can drink with your parent up until the age you're 18. So if you're at a bar and you've got your 16-year-old,
true.
This is true. You can order your kid a beer. They can have that beer. They can drink. You want a cocktail? They can have a cocktail. Now, ironically, and this is where it really sort of jumps the shark. No, this is true. If you're with your parent, you can get drunk.
That's awesome. I never heard of this.
Till you're 18. Once you turn 18, no longer. Now, because you're a legal adult,
that doesn't make sense.
Of course, it doesn't make sense. This is why we love politicians. It makes no sense at all. But once you're 18, you may serve your country, but you may not have a cocktail with us. That was for when you were 17, young man. And again,
then you got to wait 3 years, and then you can. So there's So if I'm 5, I can have a beer.
Yes.
But if I'm 19, I'm screwed.
That's right. That's right.
Awesome. That makes sense.
That's when you get to be creative. Coach Craig Cole,
Good
the
job,
head coach of the Onalaska Hilltoppers, is here with us. That's when you get to be creative and go back to some of your high school roots. You know, Craig, a lot of times in high school, you figure out how it is you need to score a keg and find beers with your friends. You know, because here in Wisconsin, we've got open drinking up until the age of 18 with your parents, and then you can't drink anymore. Did you ever take your kids out for beers when they were 12? Like, I never did that. I never gave my kids the opportunity to drink with us.
Greg, you there?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
I can't.
I was getting a major echo. Sorry about that. Could you give me?
So, Craig, I was just telling Chad about the weirdness of Wisconsin, how we can drink with our kids up until the age of 18, and then from 18 to 21, they can't do that at a bar. I was never on board with taking John out for a drink at 13 or 14 years old. Tell me you never did that with your kids.
I can say that I have not. I just had my oldest turned 21 on. We share the same birthday, so I actually waited until she was 21 to be honest with you. So no, I did not do that. That's a little awkward and a little uncomfortable, especially being a coach. That's not cool.
No, that's not a great look. That's not a great look. Craig Cole, coach of the Onalaska Hilltoppers, has mentioned, Chad, we were talking about you earlier, coach, meeting up at the Eagles game the other night and even having a pork chop sighting right there for us, all sort of chum up and joke about. But we were talking about your team and the big matchups that you've got coming up. I know that you just had a tough game against Holman. A few nights back, you guys were victorious. Your youngest son, Ian, plays on your senior team, right? He's actually on the varsity team right now?
Correct.
Okay, so what do you have coming up for not only the weeks ahead here, but what's that big matchup with Central? Let's get a couple of those things, starting off with some of the games that you've got coming up here most recently. Who are going to be some of your opponents that will be getting a chance to see you play against?
Yeah, just to kind of back up a little bit, we actually just went through a 7-game stretch where 6 of the 7 teams were ranked. We had lost the number 1 ranked team in the state, Wisconsin Lutheran, and then blew a lead the next night against La Follette, and then we've won 5 straight against ranked teams since that day. So we're playing pretty well, we think. After that tough stretch of non-conference and obviously the conference game versus Central, now we're kind of back into conference play here for a few weeks here. We've got at Logan tonight, who's has played much better as of late. They did beat Holman, and Holman destroyed Aquinas last night, so they're playing much better. We've got Toma coming up next week as well as Sparta, and then the following week, we're looking at that matchup with Central once again. So it's kind of like a Tuesday Friday where we finally get to a normal schedule. We've had a lot of like back-to-back Friday Saturday tough turnaround type games, so it's kind of nice to get back to a normal high school schedule for us. But we're looking forward. I think we're 5-0 conference right now. We're looking to kind of keep it rolling in league play, but we know that we're going to get everybody's best shot here moving forward.
You always do get everybody's best shot, and I think that's pretty much at this point a foregone conclusion because of the success that you've had over the last 10 years since you've become head coach of this team. You've had a lot of success making runs to the state championship, putting players into big time college programs, even into the NBA. Coach Cole, we were talking about a couple of your guys the other day, and you've got a lot of college type players here in the Onalaska program. Let's highlight a couple that might be playing D1, D2, even D3 college. As we were enjoying, some college action the other night, we sort of got into that conversation.
Yeah. Coincidentally, when I was at the game with you, I got a text from the Winona State coach, and they offered our junior wing player Evan Anderson a scholarship the other day, which is pretty
Fantastic.
Cool. Our sophomore guard, TJ Stutley, has an offer from Grambling right now and has had a lot of interest from Wisconsin, Iowa, Minnesota, and numerous Big Ten type schools. And he's had a fantastic season for us. So those two for sure. We got 6'5" junior shooter in Isaac Scamp. That's a potential college player, as well as a few others in our program. So, we feel like we've got a few college kids and not just basketball players. Adam Skifton's was our quarterback in football. He starts for us, and he's going to play college. He's going to be a college quarterback somewhere. Nicky Odom is our little guard. He's going to play go up for track in college. So we feel like we've got not just basketball players. We've got multi-sport athletes and a lot of college athletes that are playing in our program right now, and we're very proud of it.
Well, I would imagine that, all the parents that are possibly watching, listening to this later, will hear about this, can echo that, the pride that you get from, having the accomplishments and really the area that builds up and supports these kids. It's fantastic. Let me ask you another question, because you mentioned your game against Logan tonight. And Logan, I saw them a couple of weeks ago against Central, at Central. And while they didn't win, they played, I thought, a valiant game. And there's some real talent there on Logan. They've got some size as well and some good shooters. Chad, you don't know this because you're not from the area, but there's a referendum that was hoisted. It wasn't passed, that would combine Logan and Central high schools. We've got two teams and two high schools here in town. And that, I think, eventually, Coach Cole, will happen. I think that at some point, those two high schools are going to merge. As the Onalaska head coach, what challenges would that present if in fact Logan and Central merge together, and then the talent of those two teams merge together? As an opposing head coach from a city that's 6 minutes away from Onalaska, or from La Crosse, how much of a challenge do you think that would present to teams like yourselves, the Holman Vikings, the West Salem Panthers, and others that are, right here in our particular shouting range?
Yeah. From a competitive standpoint, obviously, make it tough on us. That would put them at about 1,800 kids, and we're at about 900 in that area. So it's basically twice the enrollment of our school. But we welcome that. You look at who we play, and we're used to playing top level teams, and so I would thrive on having that challenge. I think the biggest thing is right now with our conference with 7 teams, we have 12 conference games, and that would put us down to 10, and we can play 24 games. So finding 14 non-conference games presents a huge challenge from that standpoint. And then obviously you have a huge enrollment discrepancy between Aquinas and the La Crosse schools and that type of thing. So it presents some challenges that way. But from a competition standpoint, let's roll.
Yeah, that's got to be the motto, right? Let's roll. And you guys haven't, I don't think, shied away from any of that competition. When you think, about the kinds of teams that you would have to play, say that you weren't able to get those 12 conference games, where would you look to find those games? Would those be from teams in Minnesota that you could draw over? Because I know that you've had a lot of those kinds of matchups. Like, how far out are you guys going to have to look if, in fact, that does come to fruition?
Yeah, in our state, our area, the Madison area, Fox Valley, and suburban Milwaukee is kind of where the top teams have been. So, we go over Christmas and play it, in Milwaukee, that type of thing. So. What I would probably do is look more to the Fox Valley area, play a couple teams over there, or the Madison area as well. It's kind of hard in Minnesota now. I love playing those Minnesota teams because obviously they're very good, but the way our seeding is structured, we don't get a lot of credit if we beat it. Like last year, we lost to Caledonia, who was number 1 in the state, and it counted as losing to a 500 team. Gotcha. This year we beat Minneapolis North, who's ranked 6th in the state. We beat them by 30, and it counts as beating a 500 team. So we don't get very much credit seeding-wise for that. So I try to keep the Minnesota schools at a minimum now just because of that, unfortunately.
It makes a lot of sense. I didn't realize that was how that worked out as far as the strength of schedule and what would be attributed to you in Minneapolis North. I mean, we're talking about a school with a great history, and they've had a lot of great players come out of that program. All right, before I let you go, I want to get your thoughts on a couple of NBA takes here, because you're a big NBA guy, and you and me and Chad all kind of grew up in the era where Michael Jordan was dominating. The Lakers were the Lakers, and that was fun to see. The Boston Celtics obviously had their great run with Larry and Kevin McHale and company. Coach, when you look at the teams this year in the NBA, Bucks, of course, we have some shared affection for. The Chicago Bulls, I know a team that you grew up kind of watching too. Who are you looking at right now as the best team in the East, and conversely, the best team in the West from your fans' perspective?
Yeah, I've watched, the Christmas Day, I've watched probably a dozen games here in the last 3-4 weeks. I think the Celtics are really good. They just have, they got a couple of elite scorers. They got length. They got experience from last year. So they scare me, and they don't seem to ever get kind of rattled, and they're just tough, And so I think that presents the Bucks with a huge challenge. It'll be interesting to see now with, Middleton getting healthy, how the Bucks evolve here. Obviously, they'll be in the mix as well. In the West, it's wide open. I have watched Denver a few times, and I'm in complete amazement of watching the Joker play, because you have this humongous guy that looks slow and can barely jump, and he just completely dominates the game from every facet, So, Denver's playing really well right now. It'll be interesting to see the Golden State getting healthy, and some other teams like Phoenix who have been, injury, the injury bug, and they're kind of getting back going here too. But Denver looks like probably the best team in the West right now. Like I said, I think the Celtics are the Bucks in the East.
Yeah, I share that sentiment for the most part. I also look at teams like, and I know that this is going to come off as a crazy fan take, the Los Angeles Lakers, and in the Eastern Conference still.
Come on.
Well, the Lakers only because I think that if they get healthy, they're only 4 games out of 4th right now, and if they start
what about
to get
the Grizzlies?
Healthy,
let's come on.
Okay, but that's an obvious take. We know that I love the Grizzlies. I just look at the Lakers and I'm saying, hey, if they get healthy, they could present problems. Rui Hachimura, who played at Gonzaga, Chad, that's your team. He's going to be a big add, but I love the Celtics in the East as much as I love the Bucks. I just think they're a great team, even though last night, as Rob Dog from Stoddard was mentioning, they couldn't beat his Knicks because Jaylen Brown missed a pair of free throws to end the game. I just think that you're right. The elite scoring, the fact that they've got length, they've got Robert Williams, they've got Al Horford, they've got some really good players on that team. That's going to be a tough team to beat. And yes, I know Morning Wood says if the Lakers get healthy. All right, Coach Cole, listen, we appreciate you joining the program this morning. I think that I'm going to set my Lakers stuff aside for now. I've been shouted down enough. It's fine. But
I think the Clippers are better, man. I think the Clippers are a lot better.
So they beat the Spurs by 38 points last night. It's no big deal. Nothing to see here. Appreciate your time. Can't wait to come out to some games. Again, we've still got some matchups left this season. Central and Anna, I'll be there at your campus in a couple of weeks. But coming up tonight, you'll be at Logan. So if you're in the area, maybe stop by and take a look here at Onalaska versus Logan. Should be a real fun game. If I were to put together a spread, I've got you guys minus about 10 right now. But we'll just, we're not going to bet on high school sports, so we won't do that. Okay. Coach Craig Cole, thank you so much. Great running into you the other night. Have a good one, and we'll talk to you soon, bud.
All right. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it, man.
Take care.
Now more than ever, if you're looking to buy or sell your first home or perhaps an investment property, you need a full-time dedicated real estate agent who is up to date on all the latest trends and analysis and is ready to give you the kind of service that you deserve. That's why the official real estate agent and the official real estate partner of the Sports Carnival is Kyle Cable of One Trust Real Estate. Whether you're looking to buy or sell your first home, or perhaps you are a seasoned investor, call the official real estate agent partner of the Sports Carnival, Kyle Cable of One Trust Real Estate.
Hello, I am Don Francisco, and I roast and blend coffees for your pleasure and mine. My newest blend is Vanilla Nuts. The coffee so rich and so sweet, it tastes like the French Alps has dangled its in your cup of java. If you love coffee like I do, then you'll love Don Francisco's with a 135-year tradition. Because at Don Francisco's, if you're up all night, so are we.
Back to the action, live from the Trauma Center studios. This is the Sports Carnival. Jerry Tarkanian once said about basketball, the secret is to have 8 great players and 4 others who will cheer like crazy. Now here's your host, Dave Carney.
Man, Jerry Tarkanian reference here on the show. I love this. So last night, while I was having dinner, I was watching Hulu, and I don't have Hulu at my house. It's at my girlfriend's house. So I was watching Hulu, and that Laker documentary, which isn't the same thing that they've got on HBO. So there's Winning Time on HBO. Hulu had this thing called The Dynasty, the Lakers Dynasty. Chad, I know that there was a lot of bitching and moaning over this first season of Winning Time and how irrepresentative it was of the entire era. Not from what I could see from the people that were actually talking about it themselves. It nearly married and mirrored the same thing. What was really interesting in that first episode, because I think that's a 4-part series on Hulu. What was really interesting was the take, and they covered this in Winning Time, that Jerry Tarkanian was going to be the next coach of the Lakers, that Jerry Buss went to Las Vegas, met with Tarkanian, and we know this to be true, had offered Tarkanian's manager to give to Tarkanian the job for the Lakers. This guy was 51 years old, Jerry's manager at the time. Well, Jerry goes back, Buss, to L.A. Tarkanian stayed, of course, in Las Vegas. Jerry Tarkanian keeps wondering, where's my manager? Where's my manager? They find him shot in the head, tied up in a bag in the back of a Rolls Royce which Jerry Buss then had to get police protection for because he drove a similar Rolls Royce. So they didn't know if the hit was actually for Jerry Buss or if it was for his agent. Needless to say, Jerry Tarkanian mentioned when asked, why didn't you take that Laker job? He's like, well, there was a lot of things going on at the time, and I had a lawsuit that was bubbling up here. It just didn't feel right. No, it didn't, because your manager was shot in the head and put in a Rolls Royce. You basically decided at that point, Jerry Tarkanian, I think Vegas is home. I think we're going to stay here. This is a good place.
So what that's leading to, right, or we're assuming that means, is that the mob was like, no, you're not leaving because you're
ours.
Helping us fix games?
No, not fix games. The mob was a Vegas investment, right? They basically.
No, I get that.
I think that they wanted Jerry as their coach, not the Lakers coach. That's what I think. You want to talk about fan, okay? You want to talk about fan. Spilatro, who was played by Joe Pesci in the movie Casino, was a fucking lunatic. I mean, the man was insane, like absolutely insane. And for anybody that lived in Las Vegas during that era, that name was synonymous with like, you heard that, it was like, saying Candyman 3 times in the mirror, and then dude shows up with a hook and he's just going to slash you. The guy was like literally an insane, murderous individual. If he didn't want you to leave for his own personal reasons, he liked you biting the towel. He thought that Armand Gilliam was going to be a great player, wanted to see him get some time. The Hammer, right? You ain't leaving. And no, I think that's what it was. Not to say that Jerry was fixing anything, because that wasn't the takeaway that I got. It's like, this is our coach and you ain't getting fuck off. By the way, the NBA wasn't nearly, not until the Lakers really, the NBA wasn't nearly what it is today. It just wasn't. And the money wasn't there. Jerry probably would have made more money even at that point staying in college. And of course, maybe getting stipends from the mafia. But either way, when you mentioned Jerry's name, it brought me back to last night, because I thought, geez Louise, if that isn't just one of those stories that as the years go on seems more and more incredible, because we don't remember that time like that.
It's funny you mentioned that, because you and I both, are into winning time, and I'm looking forward to the upcoming season and looking forward to the future when they get into the 90s and in the Shaq and Kobe era. I'm really looking forward to that. But what's funny about that is I remember seeing that story. I haven't watched that particular program you're talking about, but that was a counter to it. They're like, no, this is the real true story. So it's interesting to hear your take on watching that and how much it actually marries up with the winning time. So you're like, but what are they trying to argue against?
And they also talked about Kareem really being chippy with Magic, and Kareem's in this documentary, right? But Norm Nixon was talking about how he was a bit chippy with him and not the same guy. To me, it seemed like the two things were completely the same. One was just dramatically acted, and the other one was using actual highlights and actual reels. Again, that show Winning Time, if you haven't seen it, I don't care if you're a Laker fan or not. It has nothing to do with being a Laker fan specifically. It's just a great piece of work by John C. Reilly in particular. That might be the best thing that John C. Reilly has ever been in. And I am a huge John C. Reilly fan. I really am.
Yeah.
He's a great actor. He really is. There's another movie with John C. Reilly. Let me just throw out here real quick. It's about Vegas and gambling. It's called Hard 8. Okay. And I've
never seen that. I know what you're talking about.
Reilly's down on his luck, kind of, Earth's wild traveler. And he gets picked up by, I can't remember the actor's name, old guy that always plays like he's Men in Black. You want this, Charlie? You want this or not? It's actually a pretty decent movie. I would give it a look if you have some time.
Good morning, Wood, checking in, saying one of the greatest crews of all time: Larry Johnson, Stacey Adam, Greg Anthony, Anderson Hunt, Greg Eccles. Yeah, it was a great team. I mean, actually, he had great guys before that too.
Yes, that's what I mentioned. Armin Gilliam, Reggie Theus. I mean,
Reggie Theus. Yeah, exactly. So
Rebels. Whew.
But that team specifically, that Morning Wood's talking about, maybe the, if not one of the, for sure, if not the greatest college teams of all time.
I would roll them out there. Yeah, I would roll them out there against every team and say they had a really good shot. The one other team that I think, two teams that I think would have really given both the Rebels and any Duke or any UCLA team would be the 83-84 Georgetown Hoyas, and then the 81, 82, 83 North Carolina Tar Heels.
Yeah.
They had so much size. When you've got guys like, Patrick Ewing playing alongside who Georgetown had, which I can't recall all their guys off the top of my head, but then North Carolina, you had Sam Perkins, you had James Worthy, you had Kenny Smith, you had Michael fucking Jordan. Those are going to be tough teams to beat in college, right? Yeah. But the Larry Johnson, he was just so powerful. But he would have been the de facto center on that team, right? And I don't think that he could have guarded Patrick Ewing. I don't think he could have guarded Sam Perkins really in his prime, and James Worthy. Imagine having to do that. All right, guys, we got a good opponent across from us. Well, who are we gonna have? Well, 3 of them are gonna be in the Hall of Fame. You're gonna have at least 27 All-Stars between these guys. But
not fair.
Go out there and give it what for. That makes the Hoosiers, which in the Hoosiers movie with Gene Hackman, they're gearing up to play what was actually Oscar Robertson's high school team, right?
Yep.
The black team that they played, where Gene Hackman looks and says to his guys, remember, this is still like, what did he say? There's just one ball and a basket. I can't remember his exact quote, but it was like, hey, remember, this is still the same game. Not when you watch those guys play, it wasn't, because whoa diggity, that was something way different than they were doing. I don't know. It feels so unfair when you think about the college teams that they had as opposed to the college teams they have now. But even that Larry team was awesome. I enjoyed every one or those games, guys. I really did.
In the 80s and even in the early 90s, you had men playing. It wasn't kids. Guys stayed for 3 or 4 years, and they're in their 20s, 21, 22, and fully grown men, and it was just a different game. And obviously another team you would have to mention in there would be one of the UCLA teams with Lou Alcindor on it. Obviously that's going to be a team that's going to be pretty dominant as well, and perhaps is the greatest team, really. When any of the John Wooden's teams are probably the greatest teams, but from our era, or our time watching when we were younger, because that was before our time. Larry Johnson and the boys there at UNLV definitely stand out to me.
Yeah, Rob Dog brings up a great point too. What about the Fab Five, Michigan, early 90s?
Totally great team.
Another great team. And
timeout. Hold on. Oh, we're out of timeouts.
Wow.
Oops.
Wow. I'll never forget where I was when that happened. Pistol
Is that
Pete's
amazing?
Pizza. Oh my God. Chad, listen, I'm at Pistol Pete's Pizza in Las Vegas, which of course is not called Pistol Pizza anymore for obvious reasons. And I was there it was a friend's birthday party or something, right? I was 13. I want to say 13, 14 years old in 1990.
Did you yell at the TV?
I was unfathomably excited because I hated Michigan. I was definitely pulling for North Carolina. I was not a Michigan guy at all. And just the look on Chris Webber's face when he's over there, and the referee's like, you have no timeout.
What are you doing?
Oh, the meltdown. Webber, has he ever gone back to Michigan since? I don't think he has ever gone back to Michigan since.
It's been a point of contention for him for quite a while. And I think that there was some kind of, they reconciled somehow, but I don't remember the whole story. I know there's some issues there still. And I know that still bothers him, but he has kind of talked about it. I don't know if you ever watched that NBA Open Court. I know that they've talked about that on there when they're discussing greatest teams and all that kind of stuff.
For sure.
And obviously he's a kid, and you can't hold that against him now or even right after that. But that was definitely one of those moments that I'm sure he would love to take back, because it makes you look like an idiot.
And maybe what we're missing here, because I'm thinking about this now from a Jerry Tarkanian perspective. Well, Michigan is just as mobbed up as any other place. As a matter of fact, the Midwest Mafia used to, just house themselves in Michigan. What if he's like never coming back because those guys are like, we're going to fucking kill you. Like,
well, what they do in Michigan is
kill you.
They take you to Flint and they make you drink the water. That's how they take care of you there.
Yeah, good shot.
Drink this glass of brown liquid.
Hey, you know what? Because we're on to this, I love this, because Aaron Rodgers would probably tell us that he's inoculated against Flint water. That's one thing that he could probably say to us. Yesterday, we had a conversation, and I just want to reference this again, because if you're a member of the Sports Carnival group page, if you're following us on social media, which is at the Sports Carney, across the board, I posted up a video, part of what our conversation was yesterday, and I'm going to put it on our TikTok feed today at the Sports Carney, but you can find it on Instagram, on Facebook, on Twitter. And I have a question, and I want you guys to chime in more with me. Is Aaron Rodgers an opportunist, a COVID opportunist? Because I was talking to people yesterday, and there does seem to be a consensus that while Aaron Rodgers may have been right about his stance, okay, and say that the consensus comes out to be, hey, you were right and you shouldn't have taken the vaccine, fine. What we are all sort of agreeing to, at least in the people that I've talked to, what we're all sort of agreeing to, Chad, is this: Aaron Rodgers didn't have the temerity to say what he was actually thinking and feeling. He didn't have the courage to be about something. And that is actually, I think, wearing on people more than his stance on any one particular thing. The fact that he just won't own something. Now, I'll own something else. I got duped yesterday, and I think the whole nation did, when we thought, and I thought, that an actual Uber Eats driver was delivering that food to the Duquesne and Loyola Chicago game. That was a total prank. Duquesne University is now reviewing their security measures to make sure such a prank doesn't happen again. But apparently this was all for what it is that we did with it yesterday, talking about it, discussing it, maybe actually propositioning Uber with a new commercial endorsement. No, this was all a sham. This was a show.
Really?
Yes.
So it wasn't an advert?
No. And you can check out the article. Matt from the Recovery Room has posted it on our Facebook group page. So if you're a member of the Facebook group page, or if you're not, become a member and check out this article. It was all a hoax. It was a sham. It was a charade, if you will.
Well, I want to end with this. Go Niners.
Go Niners.
Go Niners.
I'm going to cross my fingers. I'm taking Philadelphia -2 and Cincinnati on a pick'em.
Well, you're wrong.
Okay. Well, we'll find out Monday. Won't be hard. We'll talk to Joe DeGuano as well at 8:30, get his reactions on Aaron Rodgers. Oh, yeah, by the way, Nathaniel Hackett got hired by the Jets, and people are saying, well, Rodgers is going to the Jets. You fucking guys thought that when Nathaniel Hackett got hired by the Denver Broncos. Quit tying these two guys together. You thought the same thing when Devontae Adams was going to sign a contract. Oh, Aaron and him are just talking. Come on. Yeah, this is not real. We'll talk about it more on Monday. And Morning Wood, you knew I couldn't go a day without mentioning that fucking guy. He thought we would make it without talking Rodgers. No, fuck Aaron Rodgers. See you
later.